I got the divorce papers by email while I was still in the desert. 13 years of marriage ended in a PDF attachment. My name is Nathan, 42 years old, staff sergeant with the 82nd Airborne. I'd been in Kandahar for 4 months when Becky decided she was done waiting. The subject line read, "Let's be adults." It's about this. The message itself was 3 sentences long. She'd already filed the paperwork. She'd already emptied our joint account. She'd already moved her new boyfriend Jeremy into our house in Spokane. I read the email twice, closed my laptop, took a shower in the communal stall, got dressed for my shift, said nothing to anyone. When I got back to my bunk that night, I replied with one word: understood. That was it. No argument, no begging, no threats. Wilson, my bunkmate, noticed something was off. "You good, man?" he asked, not looking up from his book. "Yeah," said, "just some stuff back home." He nodded, and that was the end of it. Military guys know when to leave things alone. Truth is, I wasn't. Surprise, 6 months before deployment, things had changed. Small things. Becky stopped asking about my day. Started working late at the dental office where she answered phones, started going to the gym 3 times a week but never seemed to break a sweat. New clothes, new friends I never met, new passwords on her phone. I didn't confront her, didn't start checking her messages or following her around. That's not who I am, but I wasn't blind either, so I made some quiet moves of my own. Nothing dramatic. Just precautions. I secured important documents in a storage unit across town: birth certificate, marriage license, house deed with only my name on it thanks to the VA, loan, military benefits paperwork. I moved my grandfather's watch and my mom's old silver to the same unit, things that mattered. I also opened a separate account at a different bank and started diverting part of my pay. They're not enough that she'd notice, but enough that I wouldn't be starting from zero if things went south. The night before I deployed, she hugged me at the airport and said, "Stay safe." Okay, her eyes were dry, like she was saying goodbye to a coworker, not a husband heading to war. I should have known then, but part of me still hoped. I was wrong, I wasn't. What she didn't know was that I'd prepared for this moment. What she didn't understand was that I never start fights, but I do finish them. I met Becky at a friend's barbecue in 2010. I was home between tours, staying with my buddy Jason in Spokane. She was finishing nursing school but ended up working admin at a dental practice instead. Less stress, she said. We were married 8 months later. Becky used to say she was proud of my service, though she never quite understood it. Her dad was a bank manager, her brother a pharmacist, no military in her family. She'd ask when I was going to get a real job, not realizing that after 15 years, the Army was my career, not just a job. I was killing time at We bought our house in 2014. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. 3 bedrooms, small yard, quiet neighborhood. My name was the only one on the mortgage since the VA loan was in my name. But I added her to the deed because that's what married people do. Share things. My dad died a year after we got married. Heart attack while shoveling snow. My mom passed 3 years later, lung cancer, though she never smoked a day in her life. They left me some money, not a fortune, but enough that Becky and I could pay off our student loans and still have a cushion. I deployed 4 times during our marriage, Iraq twice, Afghanistan twice. Each time I came home, Becky seemed a little more distant, a little more restless, like she was playing a role she'd outgrown. I didn't sign up to be a military wife, she told me once after I mentioned possibly rooping for another 4 years. I'm tired of being alone all the time. I understood that I did, but the Army was the only place I ever felt like I truly belonged. I was good at my job. People depended on me. In 2019, things started changing. Small stuff at first. Becky got irritated when I called during her girls' night started, talking about how her friend Melissa had divorced her husband and was living her best life. Now started making comments about how we didn't really have anything in common anymore. I suggested counseling, she said. We were fine, just going through a phase. Then came the late nights at work, the weekends away with friends I'd never met, the new clothes, the gym membership she rarely used. I should have confronted her, but that's not how I handle things. Never have. My dad taught me to think before I speak, to be sure before I act, so I watched and I prepared quietly because my gut was telling me something was coming. And in this life, you learn to trust your gut. 2 weeks after getting the divorce email, I was sitting in the mess hall when my phone buzzed. A notification from our bank app, another withdrawal, $88. $500, almost everything that was left. I set my fork down and opened the app. The joint account balance was down to $22.37. Our savings, $47,000. We'd built up over years, was gone. Completely transferred to an account I didn't recognize. Murphy, one of the guys from my unit, glanced over. Bad news. I locked my phone. Nah, just some account stuff that night. I called our bank from the bus phone center. Turned out Becky had been moving money for weeks, small amounts at first, then larger ones. The big transfer started the day after I deployed. I hung up and stood in the hallway for a long time, watching guys laughing, calling their kids, their wives, their parents. Normal life happening all around me, while mine was burning down. That's when Wilson found me. Heard from Alvarez that you looked like you'd seen a ghost at dinner, he said. What's up? I don't usually share personal stuff, but Wilson had pulled me out of a bad situation in Kandahar once. I trusted him. My wife emptied our accounts and moved her boyfriend into our house, I said. Sent divorce papers while I was on patrol last week. Wilson didn't give me the usual no. I'm sorry, or that's rough, or you'll find someone better. He just asked, what's your plan? Not sure yet, I said. He nodded. Let me know if you need anything. That night I couldn't sleep. I pulled out my laptop and logged into our home security system. Something Becky probably forgot I could access remotely. The cameras showed a strange truck in our driveway, a man I'd never seen before, walking our dog, using my coffee mug, wearing my Seahawks sweatshirt, and there was Becky laughing in the kitchen. I'd renovated myself during my last leave. Something shifted inside me, not anger exactly, something colder, clearer. Closed the laptop and pulled out my phone, made a list, called James' army buddy, who became a lawyer, checked the VA loan terms, contact Master Sergeant about emergency leave, review home refinance documents, something Becky mentioned casually last year. Checked the security on my military pension accounts. I didn't feel sad anymore. I didn't even feel angry. I felt focused, like I was planning a mission. This wasn't about emotion now. This was about strategy. At 0500, before my shift started, I sent an email to James with the subject line, "Need legal help, discreet and urgent." His reply came an hour later, "Call me, secure line." Only when I hung up from that call, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to threaten. I didn't even need to confront her. I just needed to wait and watch and let her own actions become the trap. 2 months later, I was back on American soil. I didn't tell Becky I was coming home. Didn't call, didn't text, just checked into a motel in downtown. Spoken under a different name and contacted James. We met at a diner 10 miles outside of town. "Look like hell," he said, sliding into the booth. "Feel like it too," I replied. James handed me a folder, everything we discussed, the house deed, loan documents, bank statements, and this. He pulled out a separate paper, found something interesting when I was digging into your finances. It was a refinance application with my signature on it, except it wasn't my signature, not quite. Someone had tried to copy it but missed details. The middle initial was wrong and the stroke pattern wasn't mine. Becky did this. I asked, though I already knew the answer. James nodded. 3 months ago. Use the equity to pull out $330. Zero. Your signature's required for that, since the VA loan is in your name only. Forge my signature, take out a loan against our house, then clear out our accounts and divorce me. I said, busy woman, it gets better. James said she listed her boyfriend as a co-applicant. Hune's got a record to DU is, and a fraud charge from 2019. I took a deep breath. What are my options? Several, James said. But first you need to decide what you want. I thought about it. I want what's legally mine, and I want her too. Understand consequences, James smiled. Then here's what we do the next day. I drove past our house. Her boyfriend's truck was gone, but Becky's car was in the driveway. I parked down the street and watched for a while, thought about knocking on the door, confronting her, but that wasn't the plan. Instead, I drove to the bank, met with the loan officer who had processed the refinance, showed him my military ID, showed him the real signature on my driver's license, showed him the forged documents. His face went pale. I'll need to report this immediately, I understand. I said, I've already filed a police report that night. I got a text from Becky. Who have you been talking to at the bank? Jeremy said. Someone was asking questions. I didn't respond. The next day, I went to the county clerk's office, filed Paperwork contesting the refinance due to fraud registered formal notice that no changes to the property could be made without my presence. 2 days later, Becky called. I let it go to voicemail. Nathan, we need to talk. The bank called about the house. What are you doing if this is about the divorce? We can discuss it like adults. Like adults, the same words from her email. I still didn't respond. James called that afternoon. They froze the refinance money. And there's more. Your wife's boyfriend has been driving your truck, right? The one in your name. Yeah, he got pulled over this morning driving on a suspended license from those. They impounded the vehicle. Good, I said. He also had some interesting things in the truck: prescription pads from the dental office where Becky works. They weren't blank. I closed my eyes. She's been stealing prescription pads. Looks that way. The police are investigating. I hung up and sat on the edge of the motel bed. This was getting bigger than I'd expected. Part of me wanted to call Becky, warn her old habits, but then I remembered the security camera footage, my house, my dog, my life given away like it meant nothing. This was the path now. I couldn't turn back, and honestly I didn't want to. I met with the bank fraud investigator the next morning. Name was Thompson. Short guy, with tired eyes and a coffee stain on his tie. This happens more often than you'd think, he said, spreading documents across his desk. Spouse deploys, other spouse sees. An opportunity. What happens now? I asked. We've frozen the funds from the fraudulent refinance, but there's a problem. Some of the money's already gone. How much? About half. $14? $600. I leaned forward. Where did it go? Thompson hesitated. I'm not supposed to share that information. It's my house. My name forged. My money stolen. He nodded slowly, then turned his computer screen toward me. These are the transfers out of the refinance account. I scanned the list. Multiple transfers to someone named Daniel Spencer. Not Jeremy, someone else I'd never heard of. Who's Daniel Spencer? I asked. Thompson shrugged. Not my department, but you should ask your lawyer to subpoena these records. I called James as soon as I left the bank. Daniel Spencer, he repeated. Let me run a check. An hour later he called back. Got it. Daniel Spencer's a real estate agent, specializes in quick sales. Cash deals. She was planning to sell our house, I said. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Looks that way. The deposits were probably earnest money to get him moving on a listing, but here's where it gets interesting. Spencer has done business with Jeremy Ryan before. Jeremy Ryan is that your wife's boyfriend? Yes, they've closed 3 deals together in the past 2 years. I sat down on a park bench trying to process this. So this wasn't just Becky leaving me for some guy. This was what a planned operation, maybe, James said carefully. I did some digging into Jeremy Ryan. He has a pattern, gets involved with women going through divorce or with deployed spouses. 3 cases I found so far. Each time the woman's home gets sold well below market value to one of Spencer's clients, Ryan gets a cut. Then he moves on, and Becky, she knew about this. Hard to say. Maybe she's a victim too, or maybe she's in on it. I rubbed my face. This wasn't just about Becky betraying me anymore. This was something bigger, something calculated and other military. Families had been victims. What do we do? I asked. I've already contacted the FBI's Financial Crime Division. James said this crosses state lines, involves military personnel and VA loans. They're interested. That night, I sat in my motel room with a beer thinking about everything, wondering if Becky had been playing me our entire marriage, or if she'd gotten swept up in Jeremy's scheme, wondering if it even mattered. My phone buzzed. Becky again. Nathan, please call me. The bank is saying something about fraud and Jeremy got arrested for driving your truck. I don't understand what's happening. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed, who is Daniel Spencer? 3 dots appeared as she started typing, then stopped, started again. Stopped finally. I don't know what you're talking about. 14. 600? I wrote multiple transfers house, listing no response for 10 minutes. Then it's not what you think. I turned off my phone and went to bed. The next morning, James called. FBI wants to meet. They've been investigating Ryan and Spencer for months. You're not the first, but you might be the case that breaks it open for the first time. Since getting that divorce email, I felt something close to satisfaction, not because my marriage was over, but because the truth was finally coming out. I met with the FBI agents at their field office in Spokane, Agent Patel and Agent Donovan. They recorded my statement, took copies of all the documents. James and I had gathered your case, Helps establish a pattern, Agent Patel explained show's intent organization. Makes it a conspiracy rather than isolated incidents. What about Becky? I asked my wife, ex-wife. The agents exchanged looks, we still determining her level of involvement. Donovan said carefully, did she ever mention financial difficulties, pressure? To sell the house, I thought back, she kept saying we were house poor, that we should downsize. I didn't see the need our mortgage payments were. Manageable on my salary, Patel made a note. When did that start? About 6 months ago? Around the time she must have met Jeremy in the refinance, Donovan asked. Never discussed it with me, she. Forged my signature while I was deployed. They asked more questions. Took more notes when we finished. Patel handed me her card. We'll be in touch in the meantime. Don't confront your wife or Ryan. We need to build this case carefully. I nodded, understood. That evening, I drove to our neighborhood again, parked down the street from our house. Jeremy's truck was back, must have gotten it out of impound. Becky's car was gone, my phone buzzed. Text from Becky, we need to talk in person, meet me at Riverfront. Park tomorrow. I showed the text to James over breakfast the next day. Don't go, he advised. Nothing good can come from talking to her right now. I won't, I said, but I want to know what she's doing today while she thinks I'm meeting her. We drove to our house at 9:30 a.m. MDOT parked across the street at 9:45. Becky came out, got in her car and drove away, heading toward Riverfront Park. Now what? James asked. Now we wait. I said. 20 minutes later, a car pulled up, real estate agent logo on the door. Daniel Spencer Jeremy came out to greet him. They talked in the driveway, then went inside. Should we follow them? James asked. I shook my head. No need. I installed security cameras last year. Interior and exterior they upload to cloud storage. James smiled. You didn't mention that before. Never came up, I said. Pulling out my phone, I opened the security app and angled the screen so James could see Spencer and Jeremy were in our living room. Yes. Up the volume, should list by the end of the week. Spencer was saying, I've got a buyer interested already. Cash offer as usual. How much? Jeremy asked. 420. We list at 470. They offer 420. Everybody's happy. What about the husband Becky says he's causing trouble? Spencer waved dismissively. Military guys are all the same. They make noise, but they've got deployments responsibilities. He'll take a settlement to make it go away. I turned to James. I'm getting this. He was already recording the feed on his phone. Every word. I forwarded the security feed access to Agent Patel with a short message. Happening now. 30 minutes later, our house was surrounded by FBI vehicles. I watched from down the street as agents led Spencer and Jeremy out in handcuffs. My phone rang. Agent Patel got them on tape discussing the fraud scheme, she said, plus conspiracy wire fraud. And attempting to sell property under false pretenses. We going to need a formal statement from you, of course, I said. And Mr. Briggs, your wife just arrived at the scene. She's distressed. I looked down the street. Becky was standing on our lawn, hands over her mouth, watching as FBI agents carried boxes of documents from our house. What happens to her? I asked. That depends, Patel said. On what she knew and on what you want. I watched Becky for a long moment. 13 years of marriage. Good years at the beginning, before whatever this had become. I just want what's right, I said. Finally, the federal case moved. Quickly, Jeremy and Spencer both took plea deals implicating each other and several other conspirators in what turned out to be a 3-state operation. Targeting military families, Becky maintained she knew nothing about the larger scheme, said Jeremy had convinced her. Was hiding money, planning to leave her with nothing, said the refinance was his idea, she'd just gone along with it. Maybe that was true. Maybe it wasn't. Either way, she agreed to a settlement, full restitution of the stolen funds, forfeiture of any claim to the house or my military pension. A signed confession about the forgery. In exchange, I didn't press charges. The divorce was finalized. 6 months after that email from Kandahar, no fault, clean break, all things considered. On the day the last paperwork was signed, I got a call from Agent Patel. Jeremy Ryan was sentenced today, 8 years for fraud, conspiracy, and identity theft. Spencer got 12. Thought you'd want to know. Thank you. Said there's something else, she added. We found evidence they've done this to 11 other military families. Your case helped us build the pattern. Those families might get their money back because of you. After we hung up, I sat on the porch of my rental apartment watching the sunset, thinking about those other families. Other men who deployed thinking their homes and marriages were safe, only to come back to emptiness. I hadn't planned on being the one to bring down. Jeremy and Spencer's operation, I just wanted what was mine, but sometimes things work out in ways you don't expect. My phone buzzed. Text from Becky. I never meant for things to end this way. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say a year later. I sold the house, couldn't stand to live in it anymore. Too many memories, too much betrayal in those walls. I used the money to buy a small cabin outside of Missoula, Montana, 2 bedrooms, 10 acres of land, a creek running behind it, no neighbors for miles. I took early retirement from the Army. 20 years was enough. I'd given enough. I got a dog. German Shepherd named Scout. Started doing carpentry work for locals. Nothing fancy, but it kept my hands busy and paid the bills. My military pension covered the rest sometimes. I thought about Becky, wondered where she ended up. James heard she'd moved back to her hometown in Oregon, working at another dental office, starting over, I guess. I didn't hate her anymore. Didn't much feel anything about her, to be honest. She'd made her choices, and so had I. One evening I got a letter from a woman in Fort Worth. Her husband was in the Navy, deployed when Jeremy and Spencer tried to run their scheme on her. The FBI had given her my name as part of the case. "You don't know me," she wrote, "but you saved our home, thank you. We're fighting back when it would have been easier to just walk away." I read it twice, then pinned it to my refrigerator. Some days when the silence got too loud or the memories too sharp-eyed, look at that letter and remember that something good had come from all of it last. I heard Jeremy was still in prison. Spencer, to the system, worked for once. As for me, I was finding my way forward, one quiet day at a time, building something new, something that couldn't be stolen or forged or betrayed, something that was just mine. For